Hello everyone, this is Dr. Swati Mishra and I another opportunity to welcome you to the fourth session of Indian Business Houses, and today we will be discussing the origin, evolution, growth of family businesses in India. Another very important topic that we are going to discuss today. So get ahead with this discussion. In this session, we will be learning a lot about the Indian business houses. This session basically aims at about the origin, evolution, and growth of family businesses in India. We also aim at understanding the distinguish the Indian business houses or the Indian business families from the family businesses worldwide. The performance of family firms and non-family firms is another aim of this session, and we wish to identify the family businesses in India as we move ahead in the discussion further. By the end of this session, you will have the origin, evolution, and growth of family businesses in India. You'll be able to identify the features which distinguish Indian business families from the other family businesses worldwide. You'll be able to understand the difference between the performance of family firms and non-family firms, and have knowledge of the challenges which are faced by the family businesses in India. So, shall we move ahead with the first insider? I would just like to introduce you to the concept of family businesses worldwide. You know, large family businesses have shown higher revenue growth, and they've always displayed a good for risk taking throughout the world, not only in India. So, where does this word economy come from? Any idea? Basically, comes from a Greek word, oikonomia, which roughly translates to management of a household. So, Aristotle, for one, would not be surprised that I take family business very seriously. Most companies, in terms of their sheer numbers, are small, privately held enterprises. There are also quite a few that are publicly traded companies. Some of the largest companies in India, for that matter, the world, are owned and spread across the industry and sector. Some have performed well over time, while of course others, 60% of the 500 largest companies in India are family owned. So today we will as to what became large, and we'll try to measure how they have performed against the non-family owned businesses. So in emerging, where there was originally a paucity of information and institutions large and encompassing, there were few benefits to, of course, reputation and connections also. Founders of some big firms like Jamshedji Tata, Ghanshyam Das Birla, Bajaj, or maybe Dhirubhai Ambani, they overcame the obstacles to set up a successful business. Advantages accrued to the family. became wealthier and their children could be better educated. They could enter existing relationships with the bankers. And of course, they had an access to the government in an era of the license Raj initially. And they could access the public capital. That is how, because of and brand awareness, these family run businesses could and groom themselves very well. So talking about these business firms, getting around raising capital and binding the economy became the family name, which had gotten established and trusted, assessing the lines of credit in the absence of credit bureaus and rating agencies, because banks found well-established families that have been operating successfully for years at a small scale, an attractive option to lend to. So these were the big advantages for them. Then, of course, information gaps were overcome, and families had learned how to manage and grow these existing relationships. The large family businesses also learned how to navigate around government and develop access to the political leadership. This was often a mixed blessing because political parties would reach out for funding and rhetoric in a poor country would often be very anti-rich. Yet the families learned how to navigate the ecosystem of the Indian political economy. Despite all these theoretical advantages, the old adage of Haveli Kyun types, that the mansion lasts 60 years, or roughly that a family business lasts only 3 generations, still persisted. So, do you think, in fact, is the empirical evidence of family business performance, and what patterns are discerned well by all of us and the Indian businesses also? So one could actually postulate that since owners of the family businesses have this major skin in the game, so they focusing on profitability at the expense of growth and eschewing the depth. If we take just past in India, the interesting discovery is that this is not the case. Over last 15 years to the largest Indian family businesses have shown higher revenue growth when compared to similar non-business family firms. In almost every industry where they are both present, this is a constant behavior which is seen. They also have taken on more debt in most industries compared to the non-family owned businesses. All this for growth and an appetite for taking on the risk. The markets have rewarded risk taking, and shareholders have benefited from this mentality in the last decade and a half. An index of family businesses in 2004 that have survived till date would yield almost double the return compared to their non-family run competitors, especially those who have survived till date. Over the same time period, interesting thing is that this founding spirit and risk taking extend beyond the first generation. Over 70% of family businesses are well into their second or third generation of leadership, with a handful going even further. So it appears that the entrepreneurial spirit gets embedded and risk taking gets learned, allowing these companies to sustain into the future. So what is evident in India also is that a dominant model of family ownership, or even an activist control for the family through its presence on the board, but the owner. So most family businesses in India are both owned and managed by the families. Simplistic notion that family businesses by Superman entrepreneurs need to professionalize and family members should exist from the management of the businesses when they have a certain is not empirically hold out. And this is the case though that there are many cases where family businesses become conglomerate and even list separately to provide multiple family members to run the businesses. But the family businesses here, when we are talking in this session, were mostly family owned and managed also. So of course, in the later on discussion, we will of these models also, but for now, suffice to say that the family businesses have done very well in India. In the end, survival of business was not very easy, but we can find both family businesses and non-family businesses that have passed this longevity test. So for businesses to thrive in India, in succeeding generations, they must learn to manage the conflicts. And of course, this will be also the focus of the next piece that we will be discussing in further sessions. So now let's, first try to focus before we towards the further topics in today's discussion. We will first try to focus on the magnificent history of Indian family businesses. In our few sessions, we have already discussed, what the biggies were doing. We've already discussed somewhere around 14 big business houses, right from the Tatas till the Wadias and the Bajads. So in today's session, I want to highlight, a major behind behind this, magnificent history of the Indian family business. They started and how they groomed and how they grew to, those heights where they are today. How they could dream of reaching, how they guys actually. So there were these major obstacles that they have crossed. There were these major risks taken done. There were these major decisions they had to take. They had to participate in some important societal reform. And slowly the government also intervened, government relaxed their policies, and that is how the growth actually took place. This is what we are going to discuss today. So, talking about these family businesses and their history in India, one of the major points that I've highlighted on the screen in front of you today is that, this joint family system that existed in India, that businesses, and it also provided the required resources and capital for the cohesion and growth of the firms. In the early 18th century, India was predominantly an agrarian economy with, deeply rooted caste-based social system that defined the occupational choices of the communities. And of course, agriculture was the primary source of income and livelihood. The manufacturing industries were few and mostly in textiles and handicrafts. But India was lagging in the development of the economic, political, and infrastructure essential for the trade pursuits. The return of 18th century basically marked the transition from capital to industrial capitalism. The colonial rule led to the decline of the vibrant Indian merchant community. The Indian businesses basically faced discrimination and, of course, discrimination in trade and bank loans. A market for the products of the British factories like cotton, iron, steel, metals. So during this industrial revolution in 1850, India became the primary supplier of raw materials. And this products that I've just mentioned was there, existing. So during this industrial revolution, we were feeling that we lacked of all the benefits that actually we should get. So some of the businessmen who emerged during this time, they were the Birlas, Kasturbhai, Kasturbhai, Lalbhai, Walchans, and Tatas, of course. So they criticize the economic racism, and they created bodies of commerce and trade associations to lobby in. They invested in research and development also, and they introduced multiple product lines. The Indian led business scope and scale across the country by the end of the 1940s when India gained independence. The Indian also in social causes. They were trying to bring in the reforms in the Indian society. Understood that unless India is going to get rid of all these social taboos and social ills, the society is not going to groom. So that is why, they were constantly engaged in social causes and philanthropy through generous contributions of charitable trust and other institutions driven by the cultural and religious traditions like, Dan, which is considered as terminology is Dan, which is giving for the needed ones as a sense of duty to the community. So they did a pivot on the institutional building by partaking the philanthropic activities such as setting up premium research and cultural centers for the progress of the country, which was highly important. And then deep rooted post independence period, it marked with the communal unrest, which was not very conducive for business actually. So additionally, the new industrial policy later on, which was introduced in 1940, that was, of course, that was introduced in 1948 for the Free India, and increased participation of the government in the economic affairs, and the large scale nationalization and government of critical industries like utilities, transportation, iron and steel, the other important sectors like and manufacturing. This curbed the freedom of operations of the private enterprises. So Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, which was introduced in 1969, put next with respect to the quantities and the types of goods or services that could be produced by the private sector. So the firms now had to obtain licenses, permits, or start any new business. Because of the limited licenses and capacity constraints, the firms focused on diversifying the required licenses instead of building their. Some of the focused on restructuring by consolidation and expansion within the new framework by acquiring over company business houses to enter into new industries. Other business houses acquired a significant number of fought the competition and blocked other firms from entering into the space. Also, there was a new genre of technology who were now well educated with good degrees from abroad, and they were joining their family businesses now. They were starting new ventures like iron and steel venture was set up into Tata's by the son of Jamshedji Tata. Shipping was introduced by the Walchens to the new enterprises. However, this period also witnessed some of this which were already in their third generation going through multiple splits also due to waning family ties and all. So the had yet not adopted professionalism, and the dominant family coalition still controlled the ownership and management. So later on, we saw that when India reached its era of 1991, the that took place in 1991 was, of course, a landmark decision. And this decision opened the economy and, of course, the business sector for a lot of entrepreneurs. It introduced several macroeconomic structures. So these reforms brought in a gamut of opportunities and challenges for the businesses, especially the family business. Businesses now had to compete with their foreign multinationals and new entrepreneurial organizations which were now, especially for capital and the resources which were now getting split between these new enterprises and the old ones. So still they could now get entry into the new sectors which were earlier exclusively reserved for the public sector. So they were quick to restructure and respond to the environmental changes. This was one major benefit that they had, or maybe a big good decision that they used to take. So some of the multi-generational businesses were able to and came out triumphantly in the new economy, while others couldn't sustain and they disappeared from the business. So since we are discussing how the businesses thrived, so this is one major aspect of it for you people to remember. So this era also witnessed one of a new set of standalone first generation family firms, SFFs, who harnessed the information-led economy by investing in research and technology development. So if we look into a scenario, we will understand, that these all SFFs and FBGS, which is also as family business group firms, the standalone family firms, there are lots and lots of taken and acquired. That is how they had acquired a lot of good assets also. There is a Indian family firms by Bang, Ray and Ramchandra, which was done in 2017, which looks at the listed firms during the period till 2015. And this study basically categorizes the firms based on ownership and management into two main categories. These two terms that I've just mentioned, the family business group firms, FBGF, and standalone family firms, SFF. According to 91% are the family firms, which is a key driver of the Indian economy. So, synopsis of the key findings of the firm in a tabular form to you people. I would like to tell you that in the year 2015, the top 30 family firms, which contributed to almost 50 total revenue of all the listed family firms, and it translated to somewhere around 13% contribution to the GDP of India. All these listed firms, contributed to 26% of the GDP, which is the total, right? And out of this listed firms, the FBGFs contributed to 21%, and the SFFs contributed to 5% of the nation's GDP. The family firms contributed to 28% of the indirect taxes and 18% of the direct corporate taxes collected by the government. So this is the tabular representation of whatever I have just mentioned to you people. You can see it on this and you can understand the contributions to GDP by FBGFs and SFFs, the standalone family. The source of it is the Emerging Landscape 1990 to 2050 by Indian School of Business. And the family firms, built that time more assets, as I just told you. By assets, what I mean is that anything that supported them have a long standing impact across all the industries, so those kinds of assets actually. So, predominantly in the services, and they were managed by the founders, and they played a critical role in the rapid development of the service sectors and generated large scale wealth and employment opportunities the post liberalization period. There was an increased participation by these firms in the equity markets also, by all these family firms, so that they could meet their financial needs for expansion and growth of their businesses. And listed family firms, the firms incorporated before 1980s, were more likely to create good business groups and conditions. The average age of the listed FBGFs in the sample was around 38.44 years, almost 38.5 years, I must say. Whereas that of the SFFs was somewhere around 8.73 years, which was somewhere 9 years. So these have displayed a lot of resilience, character, and adaptability. Adaptability is one of the most important aspects when we talk about the growth, and the growth especially of these family firms. businesses. So over their long history and because of all these resilience, character, and adaptability, it has in the India's growth story. However, with the current shifts in the economy and society, there are major challenges businesses must surmount. So the family-run firms at the crossroads of succession, have to take transition to the next generation, or sometimes professionalize by inducting a non-family managers. We had discussed this, session of Indian business houses that we had taken earlier, where we had discussed as to how external leaderships are in Indian business houses. So the family firms have to adhere to stricter and transparent corporate government guidelines, policies, and of course the better leadership, and connect with the community to continue to chart the success stories in years to come, to ensure the perpetuity of the business and the families. So with this, I have tried to explain you as to the transition era of the Indian business houses, right from the pre till now, and how they grew through the independence, then through the economic liberalization that was brought in, and later on, of course, a lot of 5 years used to come, some used to succeed, some used to fail. So, a lot of plans were successful because they reached their target growth. But right after this economic liberalization, we could see a lot of, also entering the market, and we saw the real growth happening in India. And in past 2 to 3 decades, we GDP grow in India. We have seen people having, financial independence, not only to develop as an entrepreneur, but as an associate of any business. And for those also who are employed in those big business houses also, they could understand that, what are good pay packages in India. When multinational, some Indian firms did tie-ups with good multinationals, there was a total turn of Indian economy, and people started earning well. That is how the of Indian, a normal average Indian grew. So, of course, these business houses have a role in transforming India from an undeveloped nation to a developing nation. And today we say that now we are soon a developed nation. With the only problem that we are a huge country as compared to any other country, and we have population. Otherwise, we are doing flourishingly well in all the sectors, not only industry but science, research, development, technology, what not we are doing, and these industries have shown best in research and development and adopting new technology. These have been some of the major reasons behind the growth of these Indian business houses. If we Indian evolution and then the growth era of Indian business houses. So now I would like to bring your attention towards another that are left in this discussion. We will now be the family-owned businesses in India's. They had some features which were distinguishing them from other family-owned businesses worldwide. So what were these features which were distinguishing them, and of course supporting them as a business house? The first point, when I started this session, I said that those joint families are born to this family-run business system in India. So these family relationships, you know, they have always played a very important role in Indian society. We value our relationships a lot, and you know, these family relationships have played a very high importance in determining the position that person will business. So because of this, you know, the succession issues and the hierarchy issues have not been as big in industries as they have been in other parts of the world. Then of course the predominance of few castes, you know, which are the connotation, especially the Agrawals, Guptas, Chettiars from the south, and the Jains, the Parsis, and the Marwadis. They've always do businesses because they belong to such castes and communities. So this has been a key aspect behind, you know, of industrial sectors right from the pre-independence era, because those people believe that we belong to the community which is supposed to do the business. You know, all the members in the business have always been you know, following a presiding culture which was the caste to which any particular family belonged, and they have been following that, and that is how they have been grooming in that. Family relatives and the extended families of the family tie-up due to marriages and all, they have a strong feeling of trust and sincerity to other in Indian context especially. So this, you know, naturally construes our trust and sincerity in business also. Say if I am sincere towards my maybe father, my mother, my father-in-law, or my mother-in-law, I will always be business also that they are running if I join it. Then of course, you know, the higher positions are more likely to be held by the relatives in India in succession as compared to the female relatives. Doesn't mean that India was facing a gender bias. Yes, it was there, but slowly with the reforms that came in India, we have seen a lot of with their family businesses and who have been running their family businesses very well. You know, like Neeta Ambani has been in their group of industries. We have seen a lot of others, like if we talk about needle roller bearings company of Mr. T.S. Sahani, his daughter Mrs. Harsh Beena Zaveri, she is running one of their bearing manufacturing plant very successfully. So it's not like that, but yes, the successors have mostly been the sons in India. But you can see the same aspect worldwide also. But nonetheless, it has not stopped the growth of Indian businesses in India. So now let's move ahead towards the next point that I want to discuss with you, which was the challenges which were faced by family businesses in India. Already discussed so many challenges, and we have also seen the way in which the Indian business houses grew very well. So Indian business basically include a culture of controlling the business by intuition rather than the facts and professionalization. So the lack of separation, ownership and the management, and the resulting consequence on, of course, the governance, structure and organization. These were one of the challenges that business firms were facing. And I just mentioned that gender bias was also there a bit. So that was also an issue. So this was the first form that Indian industries were facing, that they were not welcoming external leadership in their businesses very easily to manage or to control the business. their own family relatives or their sons and their grandsons to hold the major positions in the business, and especially those positions where key decision making was supposed to be done. The second challenge that they were facing was that um, Indian family firms, including the non-participative family members, family emotion, family orientation, over orientation. Sometimes they were also facing the difficulty in defining the authority levels of the young family members. Then there was this approach also. Sometimes there was this inability to retain the non-family professionals in their organization, and succession planning was a major challenge which Indian business firms were facing. Then, of course, another problem with the Indian business context of division of value and assets was one of the major challenges. From the company to the owner, by forming any kind of significant pyramid structures and carrying out tunneling activity that transfers the cash flow and value from minority to the controlling shareholders, all of these were creating a major problem to the Indian family businesses. Family conflicts that led to a high rate of failure as a major issue amongst the Indian family. India has a very small survival rate of 13% to the third generation and beyond it. So the survival rate is just 4%. This is a major obstacle in terms of the Indian businesses, right? So Indian family firms face three major challenges, namely the leadership, succession planning, managing the family relations, family wealth management, and professional life. You have to compile them. These are the 4-5 major problems that the Indian business families were facing. So by this, I have almost come to the end of the session for today. I have discussed with you what was the of Indian family businesses and how they grew post-independence. We've also discussed the economic liberalization and how it formed the Indian businesses. Earlier Indian businesses had to struggle a lot in license Raj, and there was, of course, a lot of, and because of that, the entrepreneurs could not enter the Indian industry segment. But later on, both savvy Indian entrepreneurs, a lot of new generation educated entrepreneurs had also entered their business. So there was this good growth that was occurring. Then I also discussed with you the challenges and which were faced by these industries. I have also discussed with you the major distinguishing features of Indian family businesses and the other family businesses worldwide. And this brings us to the end of today's session. But before we come to an end, here is a small quiz for you. I have the answers here in the quiz. My first question is, Indian family businesses include a culture of controlling business by inclusion rather than tax and professionalization? Yes, the answer is A. I have just mentioned it to you that it was one of the major challenges which was actually faced by the Indian business. Question is, some challenges faced by Indian family firms include non-participative family members, family emotions, family orientation overriding the business, or all of these? Yes, the answer is D, all of these. My next question is, the reason of success of Indian firms is the resilience, character, adaptability, or all of these? Yes, the answer is all of these. I had mentioned it to you by the end of the session also when we were discussing the major features that help support the Indian business firms. The Indian firms constantly face the issue of racism, mercantile capitalism, mismanagement. The answer is A. Initially, Indian business firms were facing a lot of racism-based problems in India when Indian firms at the turn of 18th century marked the transition from colonial rule to independence, mercantilist rule, public privatization, or mercantile capitalism to industrial capitalism. And the answer is B. Next question. The dash was a long decision on the economy and introduced several macroeconomical and structural reforms. The answer is C. The liberalization in 1991. We have discussed it in the session also. My next question is, SFF stands for standalone family firms, standardized family firms, stagnant family firms, or stable family firms? Yes, the answer is A, standalone family firms. My next question is, FBGF stands for fundamental business group firms, family business group firms, fraudulent family group firms, or forced business group firms? The answer is A, fundamental business group firms. I'm extremely sorry, the answer is B, family business group firms. I stand corrected here. The answer is B, family business group firms. So this we come to an end of the session, and I have thoroughly enjoyed taking this session with you people, and hope that you are liking the sessions of Indian business houses that I am taking. This was the 4th session of Indian business houses, and for more into this business firms, I request you all to subscribe to our channel, and with that you will be getting the notifications also. And please like the video if you've liked this session and you've got the insights to it. We can also share the e-content with you people. You have to leave the message in the message box along with your mail IDs. So that is all from my side for this session. This is Dr. Swati Mishra from School of Business Management at Suresh Gyan Vihar University, Jaipur, signing off. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye-bye.